Hello everyone, and welcome to RcHelpDotCom. I'm Tony, and today we're going to be working on the little mCP-X. As any of you guys already know, the mCP-X suffers from quite a few setbacks, I guess you could call them. One, the tail motor isn't quite powerful enough. The main motor pulls too much power from the tail, and you end up blowing it out and going into an uncontrollable pyro. If you set your blade pitch too high, it'll cause it. Well, today we're going to fix that. I ordered their plug-and-play brushless setup for the mCP-X. I went with the HP05 brushless motor because I would rather have the power and not need it than need the power and not have it. So I went with a little bit bigger motor, and if I need to, I can always cut back the power to 70%, 65% or something like that. The 120SR tail motor is known to keep the tail from blowing out. A little bit bigger, a little bit more power, a lot more pitch on the tail blade. This is not only the ESC for the brushless motor, but it's also the Steve, which actually converts the brushed power signal into a brushless signal. Then you've got the HP05 brushless motor with a 9-tooth pinion. So what do you say we start tearing the little mCP-X apart? The first thing we're going to do, just to make this a little bit easier, is remove the canopy and remove the blades. Get the blades out of there. That takes a lot of this width away, and it's just a lot easier to work. Now that we have those off, let's remove the tail shaft. Now that we have the tail off, just pull the landing gear out. Now, remove your 3 swash links. Be very careful with them because you can break that swash. Once you have your swash links removed, just pull the main gear off. Now that the main gear is removed, pull your head assembly up, pull the plastic swash guide out, and then just remove the entire head assembly. Now unscrew the main board from the frame. Make sure to be careful of the little antenna wire that's wrapped around one of the body posts. Now on your servo wires, you've got 3 plugs right here. The plug that is on the left is going to go to the left servo, plug on the right is going to go to the right servo, and then the plug in the center is obviously going to be your elevator servo in the very back. We're going to unplug all these just to have more room. The final plug left is your motor plug. You're going to need an X-Acto knife to cut the silicone that's on it. Once you cut that, pull it off, and your main board comes out. Now we need to remove the servos. There's only 2 screws holding each servo in. Just go ahead and remove them. Now we can pull out the frame and start to get it ready to put in. I know you guys hate to, but read the instructions. Now as you can see, the frame is pretty basic, but feels very strong. The bearing blocks are aluminum, but all the other ones are just made out of nylon plastic. Now one thing to note about the frame is it comes with a 2mm hole for your 2mm tail boom already installed, but it also includes one for a 3mm tail boom. The first thing you need to do is install your canopy mounts. Now on your canopy mounts, you're going to have these little sleeves that are over them. Take one side off. This one will go up front and it'll go through your 3-in-1 board mount. You'll just push it all the way through, install your shim, then check and see and make sure you got the correct spacing on both sides. Now that we got the front canopy mount installed, you need to install the back canopy mounts. But if you look carefully, this one has a shorter sleeve than this one here. The short sleeve is going to go on the side where your anti-rotation bracket is. Now we're going to install the motor. We're just going to install it loosely, because there are little slots to where you can adjust your gear mesh, and going from an 8-pinion to a 9-pinion, your mesh will get a little bit tight. Now that the motor is installed, let's get these servos installed. Now unlike the stock chassis that only has 2 mounting positions for the servos, these actually have 3. Now right here you can see the screws that I took out of the chassis where the servos mount. This is the screw that was in the stock servo with the stock frame. You don't want to try to use these. These are machine thread. This is more of a wood or plastic thread. You may need a microscope to install these things. And don't forget, since we are putting metal screws into metal brackets, use just a little bit of Loctite. And little heli, little bit. Now we need to do a little bit of planning since we got the servos and the motor in. What we're going to do is on the back side of this is where we're going to mount the ESC. We got to make sure that all of our clearances are correct, so we need to do a little dry fit. Now it comes pre-installed with some 3M double-sided tape. It's the exact same tape that you can pick up at any hardware store. You can also use servo tape, which is a little bit softer, not quite as sticky. Now some people are worried about this little bitty board. Yes, the one sitting up there on top. They're actually having their 3-in-1 flashed, so they don't have to run that little board. But honestly, how much weight is that really going to add? And you have one signal wire that you're going to be plugging in. This isn't going to affect it at all. Now that I've got the 3-in-1 mounted back to the chassis, we can figure out where and how we can put this in here. Now, I don't like how tight the ESC is going back behind the 3-in-1 board, so we're going to mount this one right to the front of the board. Just make sure not to cover up your little LED. Now that we have the ESC mounted, the short wire with the white plug on it will actually go to your old battery plug. What we're going to do is we're going to utilize that space that we couldn't use to kind of wrap the wires around and keep them in the front where the canopy is going to cover them up. Now this becomes your new battery wire and it'll be routed underneath the chassis. And now's a good time to go ahead and plug in all your servos. Now that you've got the 3 servos plugged in, we're going to plug in this signal wire. Now it does come with a little bit of red on the side. The red's going to correspond to the green that's on the actual board. Or, if you're looking at it from the back, the wire is going to be on your left side. Now let's install the head back into the helicopter. Once you get the head slid down in there, grab your main gear, slide it on. Be careful of which way it's keyed. Now once you get your main gear on, you're going to notice you can get to one of the screws from under there. Now we have the room to kind of move that motor and get that perfect gear mesh that everyone's after. You know, I figured this brushless motor would be a little bit more loose on the cogging than that brushed motor, but it's not. It feels like this thing's got some great magnets in it. Now we need to put all of our little bitty servo links back on, going up to the swash. Now one issue that I do see is where the anti-rotation bracket grabs a hold of the anti-rotation pin. It seems to be just a little bit too tight. A little bit of sandpaper or an emery, like a nail file, just open that slot up a little bit and it'll be perfect. Now we're going to plug the motor in. If after you plug this motor in it spins backwards, just like on a bigger helicopter, unplug it, turn it 180 degrees and plug it back in. That will reverse 2 of the wires out of the 3. Obviously the center one's going to stay in the same spot. Now that we got the motor plugged in, let's put the landing gear on. Now one thing to note, there's some little bitty screws that actually hold this landing gear in. I really like that. Now whenever you break them little tabs off, you don't have to buy a whole new frame because you can't get the tab out of the frame. Now that that's done, let's go ahead and get this tail boom put on. Now remember, as you're looking at this, you're going to put the tail boom in with the wires coming out the bottom because that's where the slot's at. The prop is always going to go to the right side of the helicopter or to push it left. Once it bottoms out and you made sure it's straight, just tighten the little screw. Now once that's done, you're going to notice you got a whole bunch of wire that goes way too far. Just take this wire and just coil it around your body mount. Same way the stock one was, but you're going to have a few more coils. Remember, the red side is actually going to go to the green dot. Once you have the tail boom on, time to install the tail prop. Now remember, that prop needs to be angled so it's going to be forcing air out the right side. Push it about halfway on the shaft. Right here, you can see the comparison between the 2 tail blades and the comparison of the 2 motors. This tail should hold a lot better. Once you get to this point, you're ready to put a battery in it and test it. Now the mCP-X actually makes some music. Alright, we're going to hold her by the frame and give her a little throttle. Now that we know everything's working, let's put the main blades on. Now let's check the rotation. Rotating perfectly. And with that, we have just done the brushless conversion with an SR120 tail motor modification on the Blade mCP-X. This is the way I think they should come from the factory. Unfortunately, I'm stuck to using just the 200 milliamp E-flite batteries, 25C. I'm going to need at least a 300 milliamp 35C. I'm going to guess they're somewhere over the Pacific Ocean right now. They are on their way here. I got 6 of them coming, and we're going to do a lot of flight videos with this helicopter. Guys, I hope you learned something. The carbon fiber frame looks great. Everything runs, everything works. I can't wait to get it outside. Guys, I want to thank you for watching. If you have any questions on this modification, come over to RcHelpDotCom and we'll answer anything we possibly can. Guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.